Well, hello to my Sunday school friends. It's so good to see you again. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. I know that God is with you now and forever, and I'll be praying that you learn to trust that. The last few weeks we've been talking about a woman named Ruth, remember, but today we're going to meet someone new. We're going to meet someone named Samuel, and we're going to be talking about Samuel for the next little bit. Now, we're not going to start there, of course. We're going to start with his family. So his dad was named Elkanah, and Elkanah, it was a little bit of a strange family. Elkanah had two wives. One was named Peninnah, and one was named Hannah. Now, Peninnah had a number of children, and Hannah didn't have any. And Peninnah would tease Hannah about it. She was pretty mean to her. She was pretty cruel about it, and Hannah would cry and cry and cry, and Elkanah would say, "Oh, Hannah, don't you know I love you? Don't you know that I love you forever and that you're my favorite?" But Hannah really, really, really wanted a baby. And every year this family would go to Shiloh, where the tabernacle was and where the Ark of the Covenant was. And every year this family would worship and pray there, and every year Peninnah would come with all her children, and they would celebrate together, and Hannah would feel left out, and she would feel very sad, and the whole thing was just very, very difficult. Well, one day, Hannah got up early when they were there at Shiloh, when they were there at the tabernacle where the Ark of the Covenant was. Hannah got up early, and she went and she stood in the holy place. And she prayed and prayed and prayed. She poured her heart out. She was so sad. And she promised God, "God, if you would give me a son, I would give him back to you. I would raise him to be a Nazirite," right? Remember how we talked about Samson was a Nazirite, that he never drank wine or strong drink and his hair was never cut. Hannah said to God, "If you give me a son, I will make sure to raise him as a Nazirite. And as soon as he's old enough, I will give him back to you to do your will." And she prayed and she wept and she was so sad. And old Eli, the priest at that time, he looked at her and he had lots of judgments. He thought that this crazy woman was drunk because she was just moving her lips and sobbing and rocking back and forth, and he couldn't hear anything. And he said to her, "How long are you going to make a fool of yourself? Right? Stop drinking. Pull your life together." And Hannah said, "Oh, no, I haven't drunk a bit. I was just praying. My heart's broken, and I was asking God to give me this thing that I so desperately want." And Eli blessed her and prayed that God would answer her prayers. And she went back to join her family, and she stopped her tears, and she committed her life and her future into God's hands, and she went home. And don't you know, pretty soon she was pregnant. And she was so happy. And before that next year came, she had a little boy, and she named him Samuel. And she was happy out of her mind that she had this little boy. And when the time came for the whole family to go to Shiloh, she told her husband, I can't go this year. I'm going to stay here and nurse Samuel and take care of him. But soon we're going to go, and I'm going to give him back to God because God gave this boy to me, and I prayed and I made God a promise." And her husband said, "Well, okay, whatever seems right to you." So a few years later, when Samuel was weaned, when he was able to live without nursing from his mama, she got him all fixed up, and she and the family went up to Shiloh that year. And Hannah brought Samuel to Eli and said, "I don't know if you remember me, but I was praying here a few years back, and you thought I was drunk, and I was asking God for a son, and I made a promise to God that if God gave me a son, I would give him back to God. So here, this is Samuel. He's a good boy, and he's going to live here now, and he's going to be your helper, and you raise him and teach him the ways of God so that he can be a good servant of God." And I don't know what Eli thought about that, but he accepted the little boy, and Samuel came to live with Eli. Now, during this time, Eli's other sons, he had 2 other sons who were both grown men and who were helping be the priests of Israel. But these were dishonest men. These were bad men. That when people would bring sacrifices, these men would take part of it for themselves. That they would steal part of the sacrifice from God's house and from the people of God. They were just wicked, wicked, awful men. But Samuel didn't go bad. He didn't turn bad. He was a good boy. He would learn his lessons, and he did his work with a glad heart. Every year his mom would come up and bring him new clothes and see him and laugh with him. And every year she would then go home and Samuel would stay. And as time went on, God blessed Hannah for her trust and for her faithfulness. And she had 3 more sons and 2 daughters. So this family was full of laughter and light and joy. Eli's sons are getting worse and worse. Eli's getting older and older, and young Samuel is growing up, and God's hand is on him. And that's where we'll pick up next time. You take care. Remember, Jesus loves you like crazy, and I can't wait to see you next week. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful time with friends and family, and that you feel God's blessings. Bye-bye.